Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. You are with Simone Milasas, your host. And today I have, a man that I have known for, I'm going to say close to 20 years, maybe 21 years, Mr. Stephen Outram. So welcome.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you for inviting me. This is good.
Yeah, well, Stephen, so let me give you a little bit of background. It's like Stephen Outram, who lives in Australia as well. He lives in Brisbane. I live in the Sunshine Coast. And we met years and years ago with Access Consciousness, but we met years and years ago because we both, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we both sort of had this energy of like, okay, this stuff is so great. It needs to get out there. Like people need to hear about this. And I remember sitting in my office and we were starting the first website, like the website, and building on that and dealing with this other guy who was helping put it together. And Steve was like, looking at the technical side of it and what we'd need, etc. And built this website that could help get Access Consciousness out there. Because one of my main demands was always that people would know that this exists so that they can choose it. They don't have to choose it. I get it. Access is not for everyone. And yet to have it available. And God, it was so, if I think of the way we set that up, that would have been a nightmare if we were still having that now. And you have been such a catalyst for where we are now in Access Consciousness I'm going to say in the background, because it's like, I get it. It's like, I've been a catalyst of change in Access Consciousness with, I guess, seminars, the business, like the face a little bit. But you have been like, oh my goodness, if we didn't have Stephen Outram, we may have fallen flat. So you have been such a catalyst and such a gift and such a contribution to the growth of Access in more ways than I would even actually be able to define, and more ways than most people could have looked at. And you do it with such graciousness. And I'm so grateful for you for that. So that I would like to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I remember that first website and those meetings. I recall it was lime green and white at the time. And yes. You created the first email address so somebody could actually contact us.
A Hotmail address.
A Hotmail address. And I think we both had a sense of future with this, right? We both knew that there had to be something, a greater way that people could find and connect. And the website was a great way to begin. And it's been an amazing journey, that hasn't it? It's been amazing development. I mean, broadband was tiny, like we were on modems at the time. So the website was small, all the pictures were little. It was this tiny beginning, but my goodness, hasn't it grown?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, if I even think of the context of how, if you were a facilitator and you had your page up on the website, you had to contact us to, put stuff on, and it would be a nightmare if we did that now. So yeah, it was amazing. And I love that I created a Hotmail address too. And I know why I created Hotmail, because I wanted to be able to run a million miles whenever I could. I was like, my idea was, if I have Hotmail, then I can receive these emails, but I can pass it off to someone, as quickly as I created it. Because no lack of fear of commitment there, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, but I got over that. And here I am today, 21 years later. And my gosh, we have changed the setup of the business. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of practitioners and facilitators around the world. When Stephen Outram and I first started Access Consciousness, we're in 4 countries. Now we're in, over 176 countries, and it's just phenomenal, the growth. And I want to take my hat off and say kudos to Gary Douglas as well, the founder of Access Consciousness. He's just so brilliant, and the way he has chosen what he knew. Like some people might recognize it as choosing against the grain sort of thing, as they say, but he chose what he knew. He chose what he knew, and it was entering so much chaos into business that just allowed it to go and explode all over the world. So for that, I'm really, really grateful. And we just had a facilitators training here. It was based for Australasia time zone, I guess, but majority of it was online, as we do so much now. And it was a brilliant, brilliant class. And just before class started one day, I overheard Stephen Outram talking about this story. And I went, oh, Stephen, let's do a podcast, because I love that story. So I'd like you to explain this, but the piece that I would like people to start having a look at is there's so much that you can allow to be a contribution to you and your life and your living beyond the obvious. Like most people have this, normal reality that is, okay, my family, my relationship, where I live, it's like the money that I have in the bank account, etc., or investment. And they look at that as that is their pinnacle of what they've created. And they've got like, hey, I've got a good normal life. Well, what I'd like to invite you to is something that's different. And something that, yes, you can have all of that, but you can also have more. It's like, what communion with the earth and what communion with everything can you have that would allow more to show up in your life? So I heard this snippet of Stephen talking about, I guess, his relationship with his boat. That's how this is.
Yeah.
So, and the contribution is, so can you give a little bit of a background of what the hell am I talking about here?
Right. So obviously, I work on computers, I work in technology, and given COVID, right, the last several years, we're all doing a hell of a lot more FaceTime than we've ever, screen time than we've ever done before. And I realized back in around about 2016 that I had to find something else besides computers, because it's the tool, right? So you go on the computer to find a phone number, to talk to a friend, to register for a class with Access Conscious, whatever it is, and
I was just thinking, sorry, that's so true, because if you think of the old days, like we're showing our age now, it's like encyclopedias. Like I remember, instead of going, I'm not going to say the word HEYSIRI because she'll start going off on all my devices, but if I, used to go and look up an encyclopedia or the phone book. Remember you flip through the phone book to find a number? I just realized that too. You're right. We are on devices for everything.
Oh, yeah. And it's not, look, there's a lot of talk about kids and their screen time. And like we're all on it. It's not just kids, except, there's a lot of, but that's a whole other topic. But I realized like I had to find something else to do, because otherwise my body was going to not be very happy just sitting here. If you look at how much you move on a computer, it's like these tiny little movements as you move your mouse or as you click something, and bodies can do huge movements and like to move. And so I started looking for a boat, and I've had boats before. I like boats, but it wasn't so much that I wanted a boat that I could go sailing in or motoring around. I wanted a boat that was a project. And I was asking for that and looking for that. And eventually this boat showed up, and it was a 42-foot yacht. It was covered in mold and leaves and branches. It had been abandoned. Well, not so much abandoned, I'll tell you what that is, but it had been sitting in a paddock for 7 years, I think, 5 or 7 years, just covered with everything that had fallen on it from all the trees and what have you. And the guy that had owned it for 15 years, had pulled it out of the water and dismantled it quite a lot because he wanted to refurbish it, restore it. And a couple of years into the job, or perhaps even shorter than that, he had a heart attack. And so he couldn't do anything, and it sat in this paddock at a friend's place, and that's where I found it. And so he put it up for sale, realizing he would never be able to do what he wanted to do. Right. So I went and saw him and visited this moldy old boat. I'd asked for a project, right?
Yep. You got one.
I got a project. And so I looked around, I talked to him, and then I went and sat down inside the boat and I talked to the boat. And it was so beautiful, Simone, this boat, underneath all of this crap. It was so beautiful. And I could see the craftswork, of the men and women that had worked on it before, the woodwork, the teak, beautifully done. It was just covered in crap. And I said to the boat, I said, look, I would like to refurbish you, create you as the greatest that you can be, the most you can be. And I'm going to need you to make some money, contribute, and be part of this in a really dynamic way. This is not just me fixing you. This is you contributing to living. Do you want to live? And I got a big yes, right, on that day. And so I bought it for $6,000. I think that was back in towards the end of 2016. And today, she's looking fabulous. She'll be in the water this year. And one of my targets with the boat was to when hopefully this year we have a class in Noosa, was to sail up from Brisbane to Noosa and go to class that way. And
that would be amazing.
Yeah, park her in the river, moor her in the river,
yeah,
and attend the class.
So the piece I would like you to extrapolate a little bit more on for people is because how you sat and be with that boat. Because I had this friend of mine the other day, and he texted me and he said, Simone, I had this meditation on the full moon, and I have this idea for, something to be working with the earth, etc. And he said it was like an out-of-body experience, and and blah blah blah. And he just sort of went blah and told me everything. And then he goes, "Is that too weird for you?" And I went, "Oh no." I was like, "Oh no." Like, honestly, the weirder it gets, the more it actually has this sense of who we're truly being. And to me, I know you, I know the tools of access consciousness. And for anybody else out there that are like, what do you mean you spoke to the boat and asked for contribution? Can you talk a little bit more about that, and I guess how easy that is, or how other people can start to be in communion and receive contribution from everything?
It's not a thing where, okay, I need to buy this piece, this part, and then somebody shows up with a check for $10,000 and says, here you go. It doesn't seem to work like that at all. It's that, if I was to put it in a nutshell, in a package, it's that my life got greater.
Yeah.
Right. And my bank account has never been depleted. It's full, it's overflowing. That, I'll give you an example. Boats have toilets. And this boat had,
ladies and gentlemen.
Right, big news, boats have toilets. And so I was working in this area, right? And the toilet obviously hasn't been used for 7 or 8 or years, whatever. Right. So I have no clue if it works or not. And would be a handy thing to have on a boat, right? If you're in the middle of the ocean and there's a pressing something or other. So anyway, so I took it to pieces to see all about it. And I had it laid out on a bench underneath the boat. I'm in a boat yard at the moment. So there's other people around. And one of the neighbors came along and said, what are you doing? And I said, fixing this toilet, I'm not sure if it works. Look, there's this and that. And I joked on Facebook that I'd been on the toilet all afternoon, and It was kind of funny, And he said, oh, I said, seems like a lot of work. And I said, well, it's a place to start, And he said, I've got a toilet. I said, well, I hope so. And he said, no. He said, I bought a brand new toilet for my boat, and I'm never going to use it. It's been sitting in my boat, wouldn't mind the space. He said, you could offer me a really ridiculous price. And so I offered him a carton of beer. And he said, no, that's too ridiculous. And so we settled on $150. Toilets are $600. Right. So contribution, right?
Yeah.
Contribution. And it's been like that all the way through. Things have shown up. I've said to the boat, hey, Mystique has a name. I've said, look, Mystique, we need somebody to help us with the electrical. Can you get somebody organized? Or I need to know about this thing. I don't know how to do this. How do we do that? And the information shows up. Or I need to buy something for you. And some wealth or some money or a toilet shows up. Somebody gives me something. I find that the thing that I don't know that I need. And it's kind of like that. The contribution of the boat to me and my life, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but painting, hammering, nailing, sawing, fixing, solving, whatever that is, I love that. And the contribution that is to me enables the rest of my life to grow exponentially. And so it's not, as I say, that somebody comes along with a check and says, here's what you need to buy this thing. It's that your whole life can expand with the contribution of in this case, the boat.
Which I get is so much about the investment in you and your living. And it's
the
something
wealth of living.
Yeah, I keep talking about it at the moment in so many things, because people seem to have this, you know, this checklist of like, and it's like ticking all that off, and it's like done that. And it's like, did you live? I'm talking even from when you ate breakfast. Were you present? Did you enjoy it? You know, It's like, I mean, you went to the farmer's market this morning. I usually go to the Noosa farmer's market up here, and it's like, I love going there and, you know, seeing everyone and the fresh food and everything. And I enjoy every moment of it. And it's like, do you enjoy every moment of your life and your living? And what if you could ask for something to show up that would contribute to you? And the key pieces I hear as Stephen talks about this is the request, like literally the request for something different. He was very aware that he spends a lot of time at his computer, and not making that wrong, but going, okay, what else can I choose that would create me being at my computer, having more ease with that? You know, that's a request, that's a question. And then also receiving what it is, like getting that awareness of like boats. Okay, I like boats. Like I love moving my body too. And it's interesting how, well, everybody likes to move, but I don't have this routine of how I move my body. It's like probably one of the main things I stick to a lot is I do Pilates every week because I just love it. But then I'll diversify. I might like run or do some martial arts, or, you know, do weights or just walk or anything. But it's like, but that movement of my body and that request for it is such an investment in me and my future and my living. Guys, please live, 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 live. It's like, don't just try and tick the boxes off and go, well, it's about the money, or it's about this, or it's about that. It's like, no, you actually have to choose your life and live. And I love that this investment and this boat was such a contribution. And one piece I just sort of want to reiterate as well is how you said that your bank account still has money in it. In fact, you used the word overflowing. I like that. I would like what would it take for all of our bank accounts to be overflowing? That's the new Stephen Outram lingo for it. I like that. And a short story is years ago when I was living with my ex and my stepson, and he said he'd like to travel with us more. And I went, okay. And I remember I was in the kitchen, and he said to me, you know, that he wanted to travel more, blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay, will you contribute to us making more money? And he was like 7, and he looked at me sitting at the kitchen bench, and he went, why do you need to make more money if I'm traveling with you? And I said, well, you know, it's another airplane ticket. It's, you know, bigger accommodation. It's this, it's that. And I explained it to him, and I gave him the information. He asked a question and I gave him the information. Please do that if you have kids. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, okay, sure. And then went into his room and was probably gaming. But I know we started to make more money. It's like, if you are willing to receive from all of the elements around you, ask your animals to contribute to you, ask your house, ask your cars to contribute, ask every project that you're involved in to contribute. It's not linear. And that's so much of what I hear you talking about too, Stephen, is it's not this linearity. It's not these zeros and ones. Like, I remember in 2020 when, you know, it changed, right? And you work so closely with the companies. We have 3 companies with Access Consciousness, and we weren't doing as many seminars because we used to do these regions, you know, all around the world. And then all of a sudden we were on this 24-hour time zone, but we still have all this staff. And it was like, okay. And there was a little bit of a niggling, like, okay, are we going to have enough money to pay staff, you know? And just kept creating, kept asking, receiving contribution. And at one point, one of the people who works with us, who does pays and books, etc., went, this isn't making any sense, but we always have enough money to pay everyone. Maybe I should look at, and I went, don't you dare. I went, it's happening. Okay. This is not linear. This is magic. Don't you try and work this out and understand it. We are generating and actualizing something beyond this reality. Let's go with it. And that is such an investment in the future and in the living that you can truly choose. So
I love that. I love that. And it's as you say, it's not linear, right? It's like if you go to the shop and you buy a cup of coffee and you hand over $4 or $5, you get a cup of coffee, instant gratification, straight exchange, right? coffee can certainly be a contribution, but it's not like that, right? It doesn't show up, as Dane here says. It doesn't show up any way that you would expect it to show up. And you just notice at some point that a whole bunch of stuff has just expanded for you. It's not that you say to the boat, hey, we need $1,000 to buy this thing or whatever it is, and there's suddenly $1,000 is sitting on your table somewhere. It doesn't work like that. And so the expectation that you're going to get an instant exchange, it is not there. You've got to be willing to allow the universe to work in ways the universe works in and get.
Well, I like that too. One of the tools that we talk about in Access Consciousness is gifting and receiving versus give and take program. And the way you say that too, with that, if you are looking for an exchange, it's like how much of that is looking at this give and take program. You know, and people do that really well over birthdays and Christmas, etc. It's like this give and take. It's like it's got to equal out. You know, we've got to have this equilibrium. And it's like that's not who we be. It's like if you function more for, and you can just ask for it, what would it take for me to be functioning from gifting and receiving different energy? Like I can gift something to Stephen and totally receive in that. It's like he's gifting to his boat. The boat is receiving, you know, he's receiving from it. And who else? Like you have no idea how this is going to ripple out. Like, you know, from the guy that you bought the toilet from when you actually get her in the water and who you engage and interact with. Gifting and receiving is infinite. Give and take is finite. So what if you started living your life from this infinite possibilities and infinite receiving and this infinite gifting and taking that is actually truly available for all of us? So
and that,
everything.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and that choice that ripples out. You know, you think, oh, I'll make a choice. I'll buy a cup of coffee. That's the end of that. But it's not. It doesn't work like that. There's this rippling effect that goes out with every choice that you make. And as you say, the people that I've met, the places I've been, the things I've learned, it's greater, more.
You know, it just reminds me, I've had this conversation the other day with this, I have a new hairdresser, and she said something like, you know, like, how was your day, weekend, or something like one of those questions. And like, are you working? And I looked at her and I went, that's not an easy question for me to answer, because every day is a work day and every day is a holiday. I said, I feel like my whole life is a holiday. And she literally just stopped, looked at me and went, like, was just silent and went, oh, my life is so not like that. And we laughed, but I could see that she went, what would I have to change in order to have my life like that? And then next time I saw her, she told me about a couple of choices that she instituted that started creating her to be more of her. And I was like, wow, that's such a simple comment I made, that then she heard it and went, I can make a different choice too. So if you're listening to me and Stephen right now, it's like, what different choice could you make today that would allow something different to show up, like actualize your life in a different way? Because as I always say, this is your life. Are you living it? Like, this is not a dry run. This is not a test run. It's like, you know, let's go. Let's have way too much fun. And what is it you would like to ask for? So I think you have another story as well that you can share with us.
Look, I just add to the boat story, and I know we need to move off that now.
No.
When you're asking or choosing, choose big, choose bigger, larger, greater than you've ever chose before. I didn't choose a little boat. I chose a great big boat, right? It was a huge project. One that had been sitting in a paddock for 7 years, covered in crap, you know.
With mold and crap. Yeah, exactly.
Mold, you know, no small thing. We're 2016, we're now 2022. There's a few years in there now. It's been fabulous. Choose big and indulge in that largeness. Because I have noticed that every time in my life where I have been bored or stuck or uninterested in something, it's because it's too small, much too small. And when I acknowledged that and went for something way, way larger, it got way, way greater.
I love that.
Choose big.
Yeah, go big. It's funny, when I'm doing a podcast, I'm always listening for what the name of it could be. And I like that about the go big, not small sort of thing. It's great.
This other piece is kind of an example of exactly that. I wanted to get something. I have some money in the bank as cash, right? I have an amount of money, and I wanted to move it into something that was more tangible rather than cash. I wanted to make an investment with it, I have gold, I have other things that I have in my life, but I was looking for something different, kind of to diversify. And I began looking at land. And at the time, I've been looking for a couple of years now. I probably started out with about 120,000. I started looking for land. It was kind of like, I wonder if I can find a cheap block of land somewhere, a little block of land that would get me going, that I wouldn't have to spend too much money on, whatever that was. And so I started looking, and very quickly I became quite bored with the whole thing. And I realized that there was a couple of things going on here. The first thing was, as my bank account grew, I would up the price I was searching by. Okay, so I was limiting what was possible by my cap of the money that I was willing to spend. And I was bored because it wasn't big enough. And it wasn't until I went, okay, let's start looking at some land that's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Let's start looking in that area, right?
That makes me smile. I go, yeah, now we're getting into something good.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I indulged myself in that. Now, I don't have 1 million, 2 million, 3 million to put into some land at the moment, but I indulged myself in that. And quickly I saw that what I was looking for, what I required in some land, was not in the $50,000, $100,000 range. It was in the 1 to 3 million, 5 million, whatever that was, right? And I'm on a call with Dane here and Shannon O'Hara called The Wealth of Consciousness, Consciousness of Wealth. And during that call, I realized that in my way of just looking for an investment, I hadn't actually considered or engaged myself in what would I really like with some land, right? What really, if I could have everything and anything as a choice, what would I like? And so it was like, well, I'd like 2 houses on it. I'd like a creek or a river running through it. I want this, I want that. I want it big enough so this can happen. I don't need to live there. I might just want to visit. I kind of went through all of the things that made me feel light and filled my world with joy. And so now I'm looking at land in that area, and I'm finding some wonderful pieces of land. I was really beginning to despair that Australia didn't have any great land, but it does.
Which is a pretty funny statement, because we are such a huge country and we have so much land and so much sparse land. Like, I mean, we have the great outback, etc., and we have so much land available. Can I ask where it is, like, what sort of price range are you looking at, and what's like, where are you at now with it?
I'm looking in the range. I've found land just west of Brisbane. There's a couple of areas there that have the most gorgeous land I've ever seen in the whole of Australia. Truly fabulous. And it's around that kind of 1.5 million mark is where I'm at the moment. So that's my target. And that'll probably change.
With your overflowing bank accounts.
With my overflowing bank account, yes.
Cool. But okay, so this real estate thing too is interesting, because real estate's always pinged me, like, from when I had no money and I was in debt. It didn't mean that it didn't ping me. So what I want to say to everybody listening is, if you're listening to this and something pings you, like if it's real estate, or, as Stephen mentioned before, it's like buying silver and buying gold, or, buying a boat, or anything that you would like to invest in, don't make it about the money that you have in your bank account or the money you don't have in your bank account. Make it about the request, like the ask. And if I look at the first house, the one that I'm living in now, the house that I bought, I was renting this house, and we got a really good rate, because the people who owned it, had moved to Switzerland. They wanted someone who they knew to look after it. So we were here. And then they also wanted to sell it. And so we were like, showcasing it and everything like that on weekends for them. And my accountant said to me, why don't you buy it? And I looked at her and I went, how could I afford this house? And she went, I think you could. And because she was my accountant, and I went, you know my figures, my finances, and you're saying that. I went, oh. And then I started looking at it and investing and educating myself and asking some more questions. And here we are today. And it's like, we have this house. And that was the first real estate I bought. And I have a few real estate investments now. But the piece I want to say is, everywhere that you think you cannot, what question could you ask, and what demand of yourself and request of the universe could you ask by question and allow something different to show up, and start educating yourself? Like, say if it is real estate, go meet with a mortgage broker. I mean, a mortgage broker is going to do their absolute best to get you a loan. That's their job, right? And it's like, and then meet with another mortgage broker, and then meet with another mortgage broker. Like, start educating yourself and introducing something different to your life so that you can invest in you, invest in your today, and invest in your future as well, in a fun way. Like, I love the way that Steve mentioned, you know, he was looking at a smaller piece of land and then went, I'm bored. And it's like, let's go bigger. It's like, that always excites me. It's like, let's go bigger. And I don't know if it's like this, you know, this excitement of being on the edge of a cliff, sort of going, whoa, I'm not sure if I'm going to fall or fly or what's going to happen. But it's like, we like that adrenaline, and that like, oof, yes, this is actually possible. And it is possible. And, you know, one of the things that I talk about a lot, I just did a class on it. You can get it on my website if you want, called You Are the Source of Creation, is, you know, I see these two different types of people. And, you know, one person who's always wishing that they had something. They're sitting at home, they're complaining, they can tell you every show on Netflix, you know, and which I'm not saying anything bad about Netflix. I love a good Netflix show. But they're wishing that they had something, rather than going out and educating themselves and going, what's it going to take? What action can I take to actualize something different here? And I mean, I've just spent the morning I've been doing classes, etc. And I started watching Warren Buffett videos. And he's such an inspirational man. Like, he's so cool, and the way he looks at everything. And there's a lot of stuff too that he has chosen that I wouldn't choose. So what if you started looking at the truths and the lies out there, and what is it that you would like to choose that would create your life to be greater? Like, Stephen talks about land and he talks about a boat. They may be two things that you have no desire for, but what is it that you actually have a desire for that can contribute to you in a much greater way? And the key piece is here, you have to start receiving. You have to actually ask for more receiving and open up your receiving to everything. And a really good tool for that is something I've been talking about recently too, is go spend 15 minutes with the plant. Literally sit with a plant or a tree or anything like that, nature, for 15 minutes. Don't say anything. Don't take your phone. You know, don't look at your watch or anything like that. Just be really present and acknowledge what you notice and what you're aware of. Because if you start being present with those smaller things, or my plants are going, we're not small. And it's like, I know you're not small. Like, with the largeness of all the plants, then you'll start receiving the whispers of the entirety of the universe that are so desirous to speak to you, like this boat. You know, I love that when you tell about the story about when you actually sat in the boat and went, okay, are we in this together?
Yeah. And what came through was this strong desire to live, to be a boat, be a great boat, be an amazing boat, you know, and it's kind of, and I think an awareness that I had there was too, is kind of a question is, can I deliver on this? You know, if we're in this contributory partnership to get this, can I actually deliver on this? And I got a yes as well. So it's kind of coming into that question all the time. It's like, can I deliver on this? Or am I going to be just another person that does 5 minutes work and then walks away? You know, and it's like, no.
I love the depth of that demand of yourself. And to be quite, it's a really vulnerable question to actually ask yourself, because most people will do hearsay rather than, okay, is this actually truly something I am going to deliver on? And making that demand of yourself that, no matter what it takes, no matter what it looks like, I'm in. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And then look, I was like, just tapping into a show that you did, I think maybe the last one you did, about vulnerability. It takes vulnerability to ask for something. You know, you've got to really push down those barriers, and it's not a kind of a little ask. You've got to expand beyond those barriers of your life and what you've created, perhaps the box that you live in, or maybe whatever it is, and actually ask for more. And really indulge in, when I talk about indulge, it's right, it's probably easy with land in the sense that you can go and look at pictures, you can go and visit the land, you can go and stand in the forest or whatever it is that you need to do. But whatever it is, indulge in that thing and really kind of see if that's that's what you'd like, or if it's just a fantasy or somebody else's dream, and ask yourself.
I think that's a really key piece too. It's like if something's pinging you, ask, is it yours? Like, does it belong to you? Because a lot of people sort of try and jump on other people's bandwagons, and you could, like, it could be the same thing. You could, like Steve talking about his boat, could totally inspire you, and you go, wow, he actually chose that, he did that, and I've always wanted to own a boat, I've always wanted to work on a boat. Go do it, go choose it, but what is it for you? Like I always say, you have a big 2x4 like hits you in the back of the head. What if you weren't waiting for the 2x4 to hit you in the back of the head? What if you were willing to listen to that feather that just went, hey, I'm here, I'd like to contribute to you. What is that for you? And start exploring that, start discovering it. And it really does start with you being in question, making choices, and allowing those possibilities to show up, and then receiving and gifting the contribution that is truly available for all of you.
Yeah. And as Dane here says, it never shows up the way expected to show up. That funny toilet story, right? That toilet had been sitting in my neighbor's boat for the last years that I've been there. I didn't know it was there. But when it was correct, when the timing was there, when I was ready to receive it, he came along to me and said, hey, here's what we got.
What are you doing there? I'm pulling a toilet apart. I love it. So, Stephen, is there anything else you want to add here before we end this podcast?
Just one thing that I've come to know, and that I learned from Gary Douglas, Dane here, yourself, and Brendan and others, is it's no good sitting around waiting for the money to show up before you choose something, or waiting for the person to show up, or waiting for the circumstances to show up. You choose first. If you want to have a boat, if you want to have some land, choose first, and then allow the universe to help you with that in every way that it can. And as Gary has talked about, and we've learned, follow the energy. When something is like that energy of having that and being that, follow it. Choice first.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I'm just going to tell a little short story, because years ago, myself and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, and Dane and Brandon were all sitting in this house that we had rented because we had classes on in Australia. And it was in Noosa on the river. And we were talking about owning a house on the river in Noosa. And of course, the river's only so big. There's not, a huge amount of houses there. And we had this conversation, and there was this energy present that we went, oh, do we already own it? But it just hasn't shown up yet. And now we have this house on the river that we ended up purchasing, So I love that you mentioned that, Stephen, and really acknowledge that. Like, don't listen to the way you think and what you say. And the second you go, oh, I can't have that, I can't afford that, I don't have, like, any of those negative words that come out of your mouth or are in your head. It's like, what if you could destroy and uncreate all of that and start asking for what it is that you'd like to show up and receiving it? Like, if you would like, I don't know, a new car, it's like, ask for it. Because if you ask for it, it can show up, and it's there. Everything is available. The magic is there. You are the magic.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on. I am so super grateful. Is there anywhere that you would like to, if anyone wants to check out more of what you're doing, or see your boat pictures, where would they go to?
You can search on Facebook for Mystique, MYSTIQUE, and there's a Facebook group that you can join if you'd like to follow the refurbishment and glory of Mystique.
I love it. And Stephen is an author as well. He's written a few books too. So I'm sure if you Google Stephen Outram and the books that you've written, you can find them too. You are a wealth of knowledge, and you're like this pillar of strength for me over the years. You're just there. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, truly.
Thank you.
Fantastic. How did we get so lucky?
How did we?
Cool. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everyone who's listening. And please, subscribe, follow, do all of that. If you're listening, you can now join us on the YouTube channel, and you can see us. So our beautiful faces and the amazing guests that I have that come in here too. And whatever you're choosing today in the world, have way too much fun. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.